I'll start with exactly kind of what Manly does and how it serves that pocket. If when you want to improve anything, you have to have a baseline for it, right? So it doesn't matter whether that's your health or whether that's your productivity. You have to understand what your baseline measurement is.
Impact some men today. I think we're going to do a great job.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we are on a mission to connect men in pursuit of their potential. Tap in as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we hop into the episode, I just want to make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe button so you can get a new episode each and every single week. And make sure you check out the Noble Nights, where you can take the conversation deeper and connect with a community of like-minded men. Without further ado, let's get some wind in our sails. You can get details on the Noble Nights in our show notes, but I want to hop in and talk to our guest today. It's my pleasure to have advisor, partner, and founder of MNLY Precision Men's Health on the call, Luke Hartelust, joining us. Luke, how you doing today, brother?
I'm fantastic, my man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And before we kind of talk about your journey, talk about MNLY, talk about just men's health all around, I want to first give you the stage, brother. Let you talk to the audience, tell them who you are, how we got here, and introduce yourself in your own words. And after you guys get acquainted, we can chat some more.
Amazing. So, how in depth do you want to go with the intro, mate? I'll give you guys a high level. I'm Luke Hartelust. I'm a founder and CEO of MNLY, which is a men's precision health product and platform. I've had a phenomenal career so far in the health and wellness sector, in the fitness industry specifically, and relocated from Australia 8 years ago to the US to chase a dream and a vision. And through a lot of hard work, we're able to make it come to fruition. So very, very happy to be here. Happy to dive in deeper on the journey and hopefully add some value.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I appreciate it. And I had a feeling you would have a humble self-intro, which is why I had to do my homework, man. Because I like bridging the gap for people, because a lot of times on the podcast, our first introduction, you and the other guests that we have, we've accomplished something in life, right? We've set out towards a goal, and we might have reached a certain level of success that most would equate, right? But it doesn't tell the story of from oil rig to introducing a gym franchise to the United States. So I want to talk about the mindset of that man working the oil rig off the coast of Australia, if I'm correct, to introducing this gym franchise to the United States. How'd that happen?
Okay, so the mindset behind it, I'll give you some context, which is going to allow kind of the audience to really understand the process, I suppose, that I went through, and then allow them to understand more from a mindset perspective what it really took to be able to make it happen. But I to preface that, I worked in the resource sector in Australia for most of my younger working life. I started underground as a diamond driller's assistant before shifting to surface blasting. And then I went offshore as a roughneck, which was about 400 kilometers off the west coast of Australia. And I hated 95% of the time that I spent underground, and that I spent as a shot fire, and that I also spent as a roughneck. It paid well, and it allowed me to travel the world essentially on my time off. And I was young, right? And so really good pay, kind of even roster swings where I worked 28 days on, 28 days off. Some rosters I would work 1 week on, 6 week off. 1 week off, 6 weeks on. But I had essentially got to the point where I just had enough. I knew I had to get off the rigs before either I seriously got hurt or injured or killed, right? And so I made a decision that I was going to develop myself and learn the skill sets I needed in order to build and scale companies. At the time, I had no experience, no business experience, and I left school initially at 16 to start a trade. But throughout that journey, I was just kind of never satisfied with what I was doing. Essentially, I was never happy with the professions that I chose, and I was always really restless, right? Because I knew that I wanted to do something more and something different than just what everyone else was doing. Essentially, where I was from, I'm from a very blue collar area, so going out and getting a trade at a young age and starting your own business and building homes and things like that is very kind of mainstream from where I'm from. So once I had made that decision to develop myself and really build that skill set so that I could actually exit the entire industry, the resource industry, when I was on the oil rigs, I was actually spending a lot of my time in Thailand. And I used to spend it, if you're familiar with Phuket, there is a street in Phuket in a place called Shillong. And Shillong has become a mecca for fitness retreats, professional athletes, fighters to travel from all around the world and train. And I watched this place explode from basically a dirt road to a metropolis over a few years. And it's still to this day one of the most motivating places I have ever been in my life. You wake up at 5 a.m., you can hear people kicking bags, you can hear people running on the road. It is one street lined with Muay Thai gyms, CrossFit gyms, bodybuilding gyms, massage parlors, cafes, and boutique hotels. That's it. And everyone is there for a very similar reason. If you get a chance, I'm telling you, go visit it. It's a phenomenal little ecosystem they have. It's in Phuket, in Thailand. Phuket. I can give you the names of some good places to stay if you're interested, but it's a very special place, and I haven't come across an ecosystem like that anywhere in the world. And I've looked. Anyway, so long story short, I spent a lot of time in Thailand. I would work 28 days on the rig, and then I would have 28 days off where most of my time was spent in Thailand, and I would just train. I would train, I would wake up, train, eat, train, go to the beach, train, eat, and then kick back poolside. It was a pretty cruisy life off the rigs. But long story short, what we did was I saw an opportunity in the marketplace there, and so my business partner and I, we leased a block of land. We designed and built a hot yoga / heated HIIT studio. And inevitably it failed, and it failed because we were naive enough to think that it essentially could be successful with part-time ownership, right? Not living there full-time, hiring a manager and actually expecting the manager to grow the company, and not really having a structure and strategy. And that was my very, very first business that I ever started from the ground up. And when I realized that was going to fail, I was like, fuck, I got to get off these rigs, right? How am I going to do that? And I started looking at F45 training franchises. And as they were blowing up in Australia, they were scaling fast. They were doing all the right marketing, and they were growing the franchise ecosystem rapidly. It was expanding very fast, and they really pioneered the way for other concepts behind them in Australia as well. And I love what they were doing. And I looked at my business partner at the time, who also lived in Thailand, and we decided to, after a long kind of back and forth with conversation and where we wanted to be and what we wanted to do with our lives. And I realized that I wanted to do something that was going to change my life. I didn't want to go back to Australia. It didn't appeal to me. I wanted to move somewhere. And I had lived all over the world at that point, but I had not really found anywhere that I thought that I could build a life, so to speak, if that makes sense. And when I was looking at opening up these locations, these franchises, I asked my business partner where he thought would be the best location, and he just said California. And I had never been to the US before, but this idea of the US was always kind of in the back of my mind, where I knew it was I don't want to sound cliche, but it is true. I knew the opportunities here were tenfold what we had at home. The economy here is tenfold what we have at home. I think it's 15, 16 times. And so I knew that Southern California was a place where if I wanted to build network and build success and build something, it was going to be a phenomenal spot to do it. And after a lot of decision making, we pulled the trigger and we came over here in 2016 with an idea, and we had no network, no contacts, just a couple of 27-year-old young lads with a little bit of cash in the bank trying to make something happen. And it took a lot of fast learning from big mistakes, to be honest with you, to be able to kind of get the first one off the ground. And when you come to the US, if you're a foreigner, you have nothing on paper. You have no credit, right? And that's a huge issue when you're trying to lease spaces, negotiate contracts, even set up accounts. So there was a lot of learnings throughout the first 6-12 months that were inevitable to happen, to be honest with you. But we made it happen. So, and here we are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because what I pick up on is there's a lot of intentionality in how you move, Luke. And I like it because you mentioned a number of times of discussions with you and your business partner, and I need to get off this oil rig, and spending time while you're still on the rig to get off the rig, right? A lot of people and a lot of guys who are stuck, they're thinking, man, I just got to go do something, but they refuse to work on that next thing while they're in their current thing. And you can look 2-3 steps ahead, and it sounds as though those are some of the moves that you're making. You're playing chess, not checkers, and you're analyzing more than just the move ahead of you. You're analyzing, okay, what is the potential upside? What is the downside? How does this benefit our next move following that? And that's why I asked about the mindset, because I was curious if that was the mindset you had on the rig or if that was something that was developed over time.
That's a great question as well, in terms of, was it developed over time? It was always partially in me to want to pursue more and have a deeper belief in myself and that I could accomplish whatever I set my mind to, essentially. But I didn't have the life experience at that point, or the hardship, right? All of the lessons and the adversity, and hadn't gone through that phase of personal development and growth that you get when you pursue something and it fails over and over again, and you just keep going, and it was a muscle that I developed really fast, and we had to essentially, when we decided to pull the trigger and move to the US, it was just the belief in an idea. And there was no prior experience. There was no infrastructure set up in the US for this franchise that was in Australia at the time as well. And as I said, there was no network, there was no one to rely on, no contacts that we had whatsoever. As I said, it was the first time we'd ever been to the US. But having a business partner that had essentially an all-in mentality, which is the same as what I had, and knowing that there was no doubt in your mind that your partner is in this for the long haul. It's a ride or die situation, and having that soundboard and that trust and that belief in the other person that you're essentially pursuing this dream with helps a lot. It would have been a different story, and make no mistake, it definitely would have been a different story had I have been solo on the mission. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have happened, but in terms of making it feasible and having someone to trust and a support kind of network there as well, it definitely made a difference. And I think that's a very good takeaway for anyone that's listening and thinking, and they're interested in really kind of pursuing this dream, is like, is there an individual that you can take with you to pursue that dream with, and if not, don't let that stop you at the end of the day. If I could teach everyone one thing, it would simply just be to act. And I've, throughout my career, the one common denominator that I can contribute the small amount of success that I've had to is by making massive right action. And what I mean by right action is strategic action and the right actions, not just, creating a brief plan and then just start working on it. It's building out the scope for exactly what I'm trying to accomplish, and then doing the due diligence on the process, and then taking action, and not having every single step outlined before I start, but making sure that I understand what the first initial steps are, and understand what the second or third order repercussions of those steps are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, 100%. I've mentioned before the concept of the Apollo rockets spend 97% of their trajectory to the moon off course. But because they simply know exactly where they're headed and they do course correction, that 3% is enough to get them there at precision timing. So you're pretty much keeping an eye on the North Star, and you're course correcting along the way, keeping an eye on the next step ahead of you, and then you lift your head up long enough to make sure you're going in the right direction. Um, Hugely valuable when you make action in
Absolutely.
that regard, which is huge. I have one question I want to ask about failure, and then I want to transition into Manly, because I feel as though you mentioned some of the lessons that you've learned, and I know we don't have enough time to go through all of them. We'd have to have a whole nother podcast for that, probably, because I know I've learned some hard lessons myself. If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Thayton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. But what's the most memorable failure that you could think of?
Oh, mate. I'll give context on what I believe was a personal failure of mine that I ended up using to my advantage, and actually like understanding and having more self-awareness actually generated a lot more success for me from this one. I don't know if it's the biggest failure I've ever had, but for me personally, it was my first real experience struggling through leadership in the early days of our F45 portfolio. We grew very fast, which was also one of our biggest struggles, but we grew fast. We went from 0 to 3 locations in 3 years and 35, nearly 40 employees. And as a young late 20s entrepreneur, that was pretty scary, and initially I didn't have a mentor or a playbook for developing myself as a leader, and that showed in the early days of the portfolio, right? And having 0 business experience at 27, it was just really a belief in the vision and mentality. And as the team grew, so did my responsibility to serve the team at a higher level, right? And I knew that the success of the portfolio, or my personal success and our success, was going to be predicated on essentially how well I could develop a high-performing team. But I had no idea how to do that. And so I essentially I sought guidance, coaching, studied leadership, and decided that one of my main focus points was going to be to build a container for growth, where my goal was to enable everyone to develop themselves kind of through the business. And learning that entire process and going through that process in the early days really kind of allowed me to shift perspective on what leadership is and how to be a better leader and how to actually hold that kind of space for the people that you work with.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And I think that's genuine. That's why I did specifically ask the question. I'm very intentional with my words. I said the most memorable, because sometimes our biggest failure isn't the most memorable, right? It could be just the failure that sticks with us, where we learn the biggest lesson from, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it was to be honest, it is one of the most memorable because we had a revolving door for some time, and it was hard for us
Mm,
to keep employees because we didn't have the leadership experience to keep good people. So, big lesson learned.
yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that because I know a lot of guys listening are entrepreneurs themselves, and even getting their business off the ground, leadership is something that we find ourselves in oftentimes before we're ready, right? Just because we're good at a job doesn't mean we're good at managing the people doing the job. It's a whole nother ball game when you go from being good at something to managing other people operating in an
Yeah.
organization. Um, with the experience that you've gotten, and of course I'm sure from a personal experience in training and your time in Phuket, and spending a lot of time with the F45 franchises, the gyms, obviously health and optimization uh, is a value of yours and a foundation of yours, and just how you operate with your businesses. How did all that experience and the value in fitness come together to what you've built now and provide for men in terms of the precision health that is manly?
Yeah, so I during my time with the F45 portfolio, I got to work with hundreds of individuals in their pursuit for a better level of well-being than they were currently experiencing, right? So outside of just the training component, I ended up working with predominantly male professionals and executives in a one-on-one capacity as well. And I really got to understand, and going through that process myself, got to understand the strains on the individual as a man with their workload, with their position, with their role, right? And understanding those strains and then looking at what was on the marketplace and what was available, and looking at that the one size fits all approach to male health, to everyone's health and well-being, is obviously very outdated. um, and then we've seen the rise of personalization across all industries, all sectors, products and services, and now we have a lot of advancements in AI, genetic testing, blood analysis. And then COVID happened and now we have a big emphasis on preventative healthcare and preventative solutions in health and wellness as well. And so looking at where the market was going and looking at the way that, or what was currently on the market to serve men to improve their personal and professional performance, um, I knew that the precision health model was going to be the only way forward for majority of products and services in the industry. And so I brought together a phenomenal team of experts in men's health science, neuroscience, data science, and peak performance to really develop tailored solutions for men through a biological analysis, an environmental health analysis, and then clinical research and artificial intelligence. And it's been a journey so far. We are a startup, as we were saying off air, and we've made massive strides in the last 12 months. We've secured some phenomenal partnerships. We launched our wait list earlier this month, which is exciting. We expect to be able to go to market in May this year.
Nice, nice. That's fantastic. And this will be coming out right around there. So perfect
Beautiful,
timing in terms of the release for this, brother. Um,
beautiful.
but what does it look like to optimize men's health? Because I want to speak directly into the camera here,
Mm,
because men suck at taking care of their health. But for the ones that listen to this podcast, it's something that's important to them. They want to keep up with their kids. They want to optimize how they show up at work. Right. When we work a high demanding job, we want to be on our P's and Q's. That's why I take nootropics. That's why I stay hydrated. That's why I hit the gym, because it's not just my performance in the gym or the aesthetics of how I look. It's how I perform at work. It's how I show up in my family and how I
absolutely.
really operate this life. So for the men who prescribe to this podcast and subscribe to this podcast, this is something that is highly interesting to them. What does
Yeah.
it look like to optimize men's health?
So it's a multifaceted question. I'll start with exactly kind of what Manly does and how it serves that pocket. And so if when you want to improve anything, you have to have a baseline for it, right? So it doesn't matter whether that's your health or whether that's your productivity. You have to understand what your baseline measurement is. And so that's essentially the first step. So getting a baseline for our biology, because without the baseline, without understanding where you're at, what's going on under the hood, you really can't begin to make strategic or smart improvements that are actually that you can measure, right? And so that you can track that process. So once you have that baseline, you have an understanding of where you're at from a biological standpoint, you can then begin to implement supplement, lifestyle protocols, nutrition programming, and track the improvements over time and figure out really what works for you and what doesn't. It's a great example. Do you use an Oura Ring or a Whoop or anything like that? And if you have any of these wearable technologies, beautiful. I got an Oura Ring on me right now. Yeah, they're great because it gives you real-time data, right? And with that real-time data, you can see how you're performing, for instance, with your sleep. But what you need to then do is figure out how you sleep that well and how you improve that sleep performance. And so for years, you would have to, or what I would do is I would basically retrace what I did the day or the night before or the day of when I achieved a good performance metric, so that I can rinse and repeat that and always hit these optimal metrics. Well, with MNLY, what it does is we test 19 biomarkers for optimal male health, and we give you a comprehensive, detailed health report on your biological health with scoring models to show you exactly where you stand in terms of not optimal, suboptimal, and optimal, and then give you a detailed understanding of what that biomarker is and how it correlates to your health. Additionally to that, you take an online health assessment, which identifies the 7 core pillars that we identified through a survey that we did that men prioritize most of their environmental health, and ended up being focus, confidence, stamina, mood, sleep, libido, and recovery. So we analyze those 7 core pillars of your environmental health and also produce a comprehensive report around your environmental health as well. Using that data, our AI model formulates a personalized health plan. So we give you personalized nutrition planning, basically based on your biology of what to eat and what not to eat, and why we suggest those foods and why we recommend those foods, and then lifestyle protocols that are designed to improve those results over time as well. So that's your nutrition, your lifestyle protocols, and then we also formulate a precision supplement model that's unique for your biology. So specific doses of aminos, vitamins, minerals, herbs, and extracts into a custom supplement formula that's actually based on your biology. So it's very unique, and we understand that men aren't one size fits all by any means. And so having something formulated specifically for you is invaluable, because what works for me might actually have the adverse effect in your body, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've seen through whether it's the eat right for your blood type or the different blood types and how we react, and even how disease acts differently in different blood types. We've seen that our biology it could be truly unique in how we react to foods in our environment. So I love that approach, and I say no man is a template, nor will he ever be, and that's as true as it is for what we eat and what our diet looks like. Um, for anyone who thinks this is I want to address those who think this is overkill, because I get people looking at me with the Whoop and they're like, oh man, why do you have to track this, track that? For anyone
Yeah.
who has a car, they probably wait for the check engine light to come on, or they wash their car, they get all the stats of their computers and the RAM and things like that, and their new computer build that they have. We take so much care, and we measure all the metrics to the things in life we care about, except for our bodies and our health. So for anyone who is truly looking into optimizing their health, what gets measured gets managed, and establishing that baseline is first building the understanding of your body and where you are in the first place. I love that you said that, because that gets skipped so much.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And it's, you know, the end user or the consumer, or, the everyday individual that just wants to outperform the way they performed yesterday or increase their output in any facet of their life, whether that's their relationships, whether that's their training, competition, or their productivity, right? Or even just their time, energy, and attention in general, needs to have that baseline and that understanding. And the wearable techs and the blood analysis and genetic testing, and they're all becoming a much more frequently used tool. And due to the advances in technology and the price point for some of those tools coming down so that they're more feasible for everyday consumer to be able to leverage, and that's really where we've seen this
Mhm.
rise of the precision health kind of product and service that is out there now. And so everyone that does think it's a bit of overkill, it's just going to get more apparent that the use of these tools is really there and readily available for you to improve your personal and professional performance. And without them, you end up falling behind, right?
Yeah. How has personal optimization, and I say optimization intentionally as opposed to enhancement, right? People might confuse optimizing with enhancing. Now, you
Yeah,
optimizing could lead to an enhanced results, but you're not you're not having anyone perform outside the bounds of what they're capable of. This is
yeah.
optimizing your performance so you are a well-oiled machine. But how is optimizing proved to bear fruits in your life and in your personal experience?
Yeah, great question. So I think for me, optimization as on a personal and a professional level it's been two different processes essentially. When you're looking at how I can actually get more output for my productivity, right? Which means how can I create more leverage? How can I get more done in less time, and make sure that I'm actually working towards these goals and accomplishing what I'm setting out to accomplish. And it's come down to developing a process, and it's really a process that provides a lot of clarity on not just the vision, but also all the way down to the micro clear goals that I have to execute on each day. And just to give the audience an idea of what that process is for me, and maybe this is going to work for you guys, is I use objectives and key results, which is something that Andy Grove invented. He inputted them into Intel and then Google and many other Fortune 500 companies. But I manipulated that system for my personal and professional life. And so looking at what my quarterly objectives are and then breaking down what the key results are for the quarter. And then I look at what the quarter's key results are. I break those down for my month. And then each week I break down my weekly objectives so that then each day and each morning when I start my day, I curate a list of clear goals that are based on the week's objectives. And it enables me to move through systematically through this process without looking at the overarching objective and getting overwhelmed, and just breaking it down so systematically that every day I know if I get up, I set my clear goals, and I accomplish all those clear goals, I'm moving towards my weekly objectives, which are moving towards my monthly and then my quarterly and then my overarching milestone. So rinsing and repeating a process like that for me has been phenomenal. And I've done this for the last 5 years, nearly um, nearly with a little bit of OCD, for lack of a better term, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it's proven fruitful because it's a process that I know that I can rinse and repeat and accomplish anything. It's just only a matter of time. When it
Yeah.
comes to personal performance on a health level, as I noted before, it's honestly been the tools that I've implemented to be able to track my data, and then it's also the actions that I have taken from that data. So it's great having the data, but if you're not tracking the actions that you're doing to accomplish those metrics, then it's kind of wasted data. So things like optimizing my sleep and my energy, my caloric intake, and my stress levels, my HRV, and things like that have played a huge role in the way that I've been able to execute, basically, as I keep saying it, but personally and professionally, because what I'm doing with my body is allowing me to have more output in my business and in my life as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've been able to on that same tone. I've identified the best and most productive days of the week for myself, and I've actually strategically planned deep work sessions for those days. I have a lot of systems and processes that I implement in terms of like just the physiology of where I work and the um aromatherapy I use with my diffuser, playing eucalyptus or lemongrass, and I play the lo-fi beats to get my brains in more of a susceptible wavelength and enhanced flow state. These are all little tiny hacks which stacked upon each other
Yep.
I use to implement my flow. And I love what you mentioned with the goal setting, because I'm going to tell on myself here, and you might cringe. I I just implemented this year a CRM. Just
Yep.
implemented a CRM. As I've been getting more sales focused in my business and all that, and it's been eye opening because to your point, I've been able to identify how many touches, where my leads come from, how many touches get a call, how many calls lead to a sale, see a
Yeah.
conversion rate, and when I would hear people talk about the projection of their business or set goals, to your point, now I know if there's a certain revenue goal I want to hit, I can literally break it down to how many phone calls I need to make. And as
Yeah.
long as I do that within the week, my conversion rate shows I will hit my number. And it's been eye opening to have that kind of clarity in my the execution of my business, right? Um, and to even project growth, right? Hey, if I make this many calls in this much time, I can make 5 more calls a day, which can lead to X amount of growth. So, um, yeah, breaking those numbers down has had immense value, but it's all about just honestly taking the time. I laugh when you said a little OCD because my wife would say I'm the same. Because when you see the value
Yeah.
it provides, the process becomes enjoyable and important.
Yeah, 100%. And if you have the data, you can measure it, right? If you can track it, you can hack it essentially. And so you can figure out how to, without saying the word again, because we've used it a lot, but you can figure out how to optimize anything. So whether that's part of your system and your process for more output, and having the numbers, it just enables you to do that.
Well, Luke, I want to make sure that our audience has the opportunity to optimize themselves and hack themselves. I like that. I'm gonna have to use that rhyme as well. But how can folks connect with you? Get more. Get manly. I know getmanly.com, but how can folks connect, learn more, join the wait list? And I know this is going to be dropping in May with this episode, so we might be out already. I'd love for folks to have the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. My best platform to connect with me, I answer all of my DMs as well. So it's Luke underscore Hartelust, on IG. And then if you guys are interested, if this is dropping and the wait list is still open, you can join the wait list at getmnly.com, and you'll receive all the latest updates.
I like it. And I'll have those links in the show notes below for folks to just go ahead, open that up, or in the description if you're watching on YouTube, and head right over to that wait list. Make sure you get on it or reach out and get in touch with Luke. Last question, Luke. And I always save it for the end. If you need to think about the answer for a second, no problem. It's usually the heaviest, but
Yep.
what is something you've seen or something that's happened to you that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Ooh. I think it's more of an idea. Can I use an idea?
Hit me, hit me. Yeah, go for it.
So this idea, and it's something that has sat with me, and I was actually having this conversation. So when you have when a man has clarity on his path, right, who is committed to his vision, who knows that through right action, right, and focusing on the pursuit of his potential, he is able to essentially achieve but also exceed his goals. Because a man who knows his purpose, knows his mission, and understands the power of process, which is kind of what we discussed before, and is committed and disciplined to that process, that is a powerful man, right? And that is more of a fierce competitor. And understanding the clarity between that vision and the pursuit of your potential and the discipline and the commitment to the process has changed my life completely. But it's been a slow burning journey over the last kind of decade to really kind of developing that process and that self-awareness in myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. 100%, 100%. My
Yeah,
word of the year is inevitable. And it's just because my realization for the past year, and part of it was the implementation of the CRMs and the systems and processes in my life, that I've come to the realization everything I've set out to do and accomplish has happened eventually because I've stuck to the plan and the process. And the
exactly.
simplicity for me to lean into patience has all been trusting the process, because the man who loves walking gets farther than the man who loves the destination.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the power of process and it's the power of discipline and consistency. And it is inevitable. You will get there eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Love it.
And of course, with the precision men's health that you are providing, our guys can now pursue that even more vigorously. Luke, this has been a fantastic conversation, man. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing and being on the podcast, and sharing your gifts and your intelligence with the world as well. We appreciate it.
Ted, it's been great, mate. We should do it again. I
No,
appreciate the
absolutely.
opportunity.
Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm going to wrap up really quick with some of the gems that you left along the way. I know some folks are usually working out while listening to this podcast. So go ahead, get your last set. I went ahead and took the notes for you, but I knew I had to get off the rig. For a lot of us, we get to our mentality of we need to get out of where we are, whether it's getting off the rig, getting out of that job, getting out of that dead end career, or whatever it might be. Take ownership of where you've led yourself in life and understand you can take the reins and take it in the other way. Phuket in Thailand, if you're looking for an invigorating environment, if you're looking for some place to fill you, and if you're also looking for maybe a fitness retreat, check out Phuket in Thailand. I know I'll be heading out that way. Successful with
Mm,
part-time ownership. If you give it part-time attention, it's only going to give you part-time return. What are you pouring into in your life only haphazardly or half-assedly? Let me just call it what it is. Put all of your efforts into the things that you want to succeed, and all in mentality, ride or die. When you have a partner that goes with you, you go even farther. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, bring a friend. Act. Luke talking about the intentional action, which even jumped into the end of the episode where we leaned into the power of process, and then lack of mentorship early on being a memorable mistake. Where are you leading without anyone mentoring you along the way? And then establishing a baseline. In order to improve or optimize anything in your life, you must establish the baseline. What gets measured gets managed. Go ahead out there, continue to increase and chase that dream. And as always, make sure to hit that like button, that subscribe button, so you can catch a new episode each and every single week. Make sure you share this with someone you know that will get value from it as well. It's the best value that you can give us and the best compliment you can give us. And as always, thank you for making it to the end. Everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.